So I'm back, and this time it's for a tutorial. So in my last video I showed off this lovely HVR Z1 which I'm filming on right now, and also talked about how it uses tape. But there's not really a good guide for recording video from a HD camera. So in this video I'm hopefully going to be able to show you how to get video out of every type of camera that uses DV tapes. So how do you know your camera uses DV? It will have a firewire port on it somewhere. So in the case of this Mini DV camera, it's on the front. In the case of the Z1, it's at the back. And it will be on pretty much every camera, even digital 8 cameras which use 8mm tape, they will have a firewire port on them. So to get the footage out of this camera, you're going to need a piece of software. Now, if you're using Linux, the only piece of software that you can really use is DVGrab. It's free, it's open source. I'm pretty sure it's command line based, but I mean, if you're using Linux, you know that you've got a whole lot of hassle ahead of you anyway, so you can probably figure it out. If you're using a Mac, stop using a Mac. Like genuinely just stop using the Mac. I think from macOS Catalina, Apple removed a bunch of the frameworks required to get footage out of firewire-based cameras. So everyone's complaining, saying, oh, my brand new Mac can't record footage from my old cameras. And the fact is, Apple don't care. They don't really care. Which is a shame, because the Mac used to be amazing for digital video back when they Apple showed off firewire. They showed these digital video cameras and they were like, hey, look, our computers can edit this video. It's smooth and everything. And now in 2021, well, ironically, the Mac is terrible for that, because you can't plug the cameras in. And even if you plug the cameras in, they won't work unless you use a version of macOS below Catalina. So this guide is mostly for Windows. If you're running Windows, you're going to love this guide, because I'm going to show you everything. So first of all, you're going to need a computer with a firewire port. Some older computers might already have a firewire port on them, but you can also get a PCI card that will add firewire, which is what I did for my desktop computer. If you've got a laptop, you're kind of out of luck, unless you have an express card slot or you have Thunderbolt, because Thunderbolt and express card are both PCI based. So you can get expansion cards that will let you use firewire. Now, you shouldn't confuse Thunderbolt and USB-C. For example, the Microsoft Surface laptops, a lot of them have USB-C, but none of them have Thunderbolt, which means none of them can have firewire. Ever. You cannot convert firewire to USB, unless it's Thunderbolt over USB-C. But you still need some expensive adapters. So my recommendation, if you don't have a desktop computer, go out and get a cheap old desktop computer with a PCI slot or a firewire slot on it already, and you can use that just to capture your video, and then you can edit it on your modern computer. So then you have to get the right firewire cable. Pretty much every camera uses a 4-pin firewire connector. It's the most fragile connector on the earth, I think, and you often find these cameras online with, like, it works perfectly, you can record, it works brilliantly, oh, the firewire port don't work. And at that point, is it really useful? Because you can't record the footage onto your computer from the tape, and Sony and a bunch of other companies have made memory card recording units that can plug into the firewire port on many cameras. If the firewire port don't work, you can't use such accessories, which is a bit of a shame. So I wouldn't recommend buying a camera with a bad firewire port. Now, you can also take the tape out and put it into a DV deck, and a lot of DV decks use the larger 6-pin firewire connector. And on the PC side, you're always going to see either this 4-pin or the 6-pin connector. If you have a more modern Mac, you might have a FireWire 800 connector, which kind of looks a bit funky. These FireWire 800 connectors can be converted to the 6 and 4-pin variants quite easily, but you have to get the right cable for all of this. So for me, I've got a firewire 6-pin to 4-pin cable. Now before you hook everything up, you want to do this with the camera turned off, and you need to make sure that you're not putting the cable in backwards. It's keyed so you can't technically put it in backwards, but if you do manage to put it in backwards, because it's such a fragile connector, it is possible to kind of ram it in backwards. It will fry your camera, or at least the firewire side of it, and it might damage your computer as well. So definitely make sure you're putting the cable in the correct way round. And you should also do it with the camera turned off, and if you can, turn both the computer and the camera off just to be on the safe side. If you disconnect and reconnect it with the camera turned on, you risk damaging the camera. Again, this firewire 4-pin connector is frankly garbage, which is probably why USB took over in the end once it became fast enough. So you've done the hard part, and that is connecting the camera to the computer. Now it's time for the easy part, the software. The software is actually quite easy on Windows. You have 2 pieces of software to pick from. You have Mini DV, which is free, I'll leave a link in the description, and that's for recording Mini DV, standard definition video that you'd probably get from a camera like this. You'll know if you're recording Mini DV because the image will be usually 4:3 and look quite low resolution, because it is low resolution. It's standard definition after all. So this is what a lot of skateboarders will probably want. They want old Mini DV cameras to get that skateboard look. I mean, I don't really understand it myself. I'm not a skateboarder, but I mean, there's how you do it. Mini DV is a pretty damn awesome piece of software. You just plug your camera in and you can instantly record to an AVI file. This AVI file will work in pretty much any video editor. It even worked in the pretty unreliable but free Caden Live video editor. It also works in DaVinci Resolve, which is my go-to editor. Mini DV also allows you to do the opposite and put AVI files onto your tape. I'm not entirely sure why you'd want to do that, and it's a lot of hassle to get the right format AVI file. But when you do, it's quite cool to see. I transferred a YouTube video to a Mini DV tape. For fun, I guess. But if you're like me and you're using HDV, you need to use a different piece of software. And unfortunately, the only piece of software out there is called HDV Split. And it's pretty damn terrible. It doesn't have a preview window, or at least, well, it does, but I couldn't get it to work no matter how hard I tried, because it's complaining about some encoder that I don't have installed, but I do have installed. It's just terrible. I spent a lot of time trying to get it all to work, but ultimately, the preview will never work. Use the preview on your camera. But it worked pretty much right away for recording the video from the camera. You just plug the camera in, hit the record button, and it will automatically split at each file. And it doesn't give you an AVI file, it gives you an M2T file. And that's just because the HDV format does not use the same codec as the Mini DV cameras. It uses MPEG-2, so it's a different file container. The files work just fine in pretty much every video editing software still, and a lovely 1080 video. You have to remember that this video is almost likely going to be interlaced unless you have a camera that can record in progressive. So you're going to want to de-interlace it if you want to put it on YouTube. Some video editing software can do this, some others can't. Handbrake is a nice free piece of software that lets you de-interlace if you want to de-interlace it before you edit it. So yeah, that's how you record video from a HDV tape or a Mini DV tape. And yeah, it's quite cool that all of this footage from all of these tapes can be converted to a Windows 10 computer, and it's not even that difficult. The hardest part is really getting the right hardware to be able to hook the camera into the computer. So that's it. Do subscribe if you like these kind of videos. I've got a lot of cool nerdy things coming up on the channel hopefully soon. I've got some things that I'm waiting on. Maybe some repair videos as well. I've got some things that need repairing. So maybe you'll see more videos. But that's it from me. I need to go transfer this tape now.